Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Expected Buffalo, the podcast. We are brought to you by One Pie Pizza, onepiepizza.com, 2185 Clinton Street in West Seneca, open daily from 9 to 8. And, of course, Hiller in Comerford, hillercomerford.com, 1866 Hiller Law for your local personal injury, disability go-to. We are recording here on a Sunday evening after a fun football game, but a rough end of the week for the hockey team, and we are going to dive into that here as we are 2 games through this 6-game road trip with 2 losses, 4 more to go. Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, and Seattle before the team returns home at the end of next week. So there's a couple topics we're going to get into. We're going to talk about Ostlund being set down. We're going to get into the defense pair, some of the lineup decisions, where we're going here over the next couple weeks, heading into the holiday break and the roster freeze coming up for that. But where we'll start, and usually if you listen, I like to start at a high level and then work my way down more into the granular topics. So that is what we'll stay on track doing here. And I'm talking about the overall team perspective, because I think that's what makes this season even more frustrating. Is you look at a lot of things, you look at their game performances even night in, night out, you kind of leave yourself walking away most nights with at 5-on-5 at least. They didn't play bad. In most instances, in a lot of instances, they maybe played better than the other team did, and you feel like they deserved more, but for whatever reason, here they are with another loss or only 1 point or whatever, which, by the way, that went away, just getting points and losses. That hasn't happened in a long time. So, yeah, I mean, you look at the 5-on-5 numbers. I mean, they tell the story of a team that should be better than where they are right now. Now, we know the reasons why they're not, which we'll, of course, get into, but let's just kind of run through them really quick if you haven't seen them. So 5-on-5, this is Evolving Hockey's model. Expected goals percentage, 51%, the highest I think they've been in many, many, many years. That's 10th in the league. Their shot share is 49%, which is 19th, so a little bit below average, but that's all right. Their shot quality, so their expected goals for per hour, 2.84, 9th in the league. Again, that's one of the highest that's been in a long time. Expected goals against, so the shot quality against per hour, 2.68, which is 14th, so a little bit above league average. Again, highest it's been in a long time. Goals for per 60, 11th at 2.62, so pretty close to that top 10 range. We'll get into that in a minute. And then here's the one that'll smack you in the face. That'll tell you one of the reasons, if not the primary reason, that this team finds themselves where they are. Goals against per hour at 5-on-5. They are the worst team in the league at 3.07. So, as I said, there is a ton there that you can pick off as this is the mark, the mark of a better team. A team that should be at least in the playoff mix. Now, to a degree, they are. They're not that far out of it, but they can't win enough games here. They can't put together enough wins to really get themselves in the race. And again, that's why we find ourselves at the bottom of the Eastern Conference still. But I talked about this, I think, a few times, and we're seeing it again. It's every year it's a whack-a-mole thing. This is the issue. Well, our defense was bad last year. Okay, it's better this year. Well, we lost some scoring. Well, it's still good. Power play stinks. It's still bad. Our goaltending a couple of years ago was good, but wasn't enough. And then now here we are this year. Now it's bad again. And then that's holding you back. And penalty kill wasn't that good last year, but now it's good this year. And now it's, the defense pairs and all that stuff, injuries. And it just, it's a long list of frustrating things that you just sit there and you just, it's hockey, but we're getting on year 14, 15, whatever we're going to be on here of a playoff draw if they can't get it together. And you just wonder, like, what is it going to take, really? I mean, there's the makings from a number perspective of a team that should be competitive, and they just can't get themselves there. It's always one thing. It's always one thing that holds them back. In this case, maybe it's like 2 or 3, but the goaltending is the main thing right now, and I think it's going to be frustrating when we get into the roster discussion because they continue to carry 3 goaltenders when none of them, for any reason, deserve to be in the spot that they're in to maintain that. You have 3 goaltenders who are statistically some of the worst in the league by the numbers, whatever numbers you want to look at, whether it's save percentage and your goals against from your, I don't want to say old time, but from your standard statistical standpoint, or if you want to go from the fancy stat numbers, your goal save above expected, your Fenwick save differential, all of them are at the bottom. The bottom. If it wasn't for the penalty kill, they would probably all be the worst in the league. But at 5-on-5, dreadful, terrible, all 3 of them. And we'll save that conversation really for when we get into the roster decision that was made. But we have to remember as we go through an 82-game season, and I'm kind of switching topics here, but stay with me. As we go from an 82-game season, the ebbs and flows that you're going to go through. Now, for the most part, a lot of your statistical numbers are still going to run out to the average of what they are for the entirety of the season, especially now when you're running up on 30 games like the Sabres are. You kind of are who you are. Your numbers might go up and down a little bit, but there's nothing really that's going to drastically change you. And where I'm going with that is the goal scoring, the finishing that is talked about a lot now because you've had a couple games here where you're not scoring a lot of goals. And yeah, that's impacting them and their opportunities to win. Absolutely. But as I mentioned, we look at the whole picture over 28 games, I believe they've played. They're still 11th in the league in scoring at 5-on-5. So that's not bad. And that's really kind of where they've hung around. They've hung around that, I think the 6th to 11th or 12th, 13th spot. They've been there. And that's good enough. That is good enough when your defense from what they have given up from a shot quality perspective should be enough to keep you in it, to win more games than they're winning. But it's just, it feels like, and it's probably not true, but it feels like every difficult save, I guess you could say, that they're asked to make, at least outside of the first 2 weeks of the season, is not getting done. It's going in every time. And again, I know that's not true, but that's what it feels like. It's every high-quality chances. It's in the net. Any mistake, in the net. You don't get bailed out. And that was the thing they were getting from Alex Lyon and Colton Ellis in the beginning of the season, the first 2 or 3 weeks of the year. But that has been abandoned. That's not happening. You're not getting. So when you have this, where I'm getting to, is when you have this downswing in your finishing that is going to happen here and there, you can't survive it because your goaltenders can't bail you out for a few games. And now you have to wait for your scoring to upswing back again, whenever that's going to be, because you're just not going to get the bailout from your goaltending. And that is why this team cannot put more than 2 wins together, is because it's still a flawed roster. There's inconsistencies, but it's one area of your team can't help at any point. You almost have to win in spite of it in most cases. And it's difficult. And it's, we can get into the Tage has to score more and the talk inconsistency up and down and some of the secondary scoring slips. And, Benson's playing first line minutes and has no goals and he has 50 assists, tracking, whatever. That's not good enough. You got to score some goals. Quinn struggles. You can get into all of that. But in the big picture, it's just not even like a advanced stat number. Your goal scoring at 5-on-5, you are 11th in scoring rate. The pucks that go in the net, you are 32nd. And your goaltenders are just not good enough. And there's nothing that's probably going to be able to be done about it. They're going to continue to go with these 3 goaltenders. They're going to do this ridiculous rotation. It's crazy to me that Alex Lyon hasn't played as well as he did at the beginning of the season, but he's had a couple off games, and I don't know, he's played 1 game in a month, it feels like, and you'd have Luke and Ellis rotating, and there's some good glimpses here or there from the 2 of them, but the big save is gone. That you're going to stop when it matters just isn't there. And no, it's frustrating because it, like I said, to kind of wrap this segment up is your performance when you're watching it, the numbers behind it all tell you one thing, and the result is another. And it just boils down to ultimate frustration. Like this is never going to get figured out. And I'm not trying to by any means absolve Lindy Ruff or Kevin Adams from any responsibility for this team being where they are, because the way this roster is put together and some of the decisions are why we're seeing what we're seeing. We're going to get into that a little bit now when we get into the micro stuff of this roster, but I think that's my overall frustration of where I am. It's just what is it this time? And that's kind of the way you always feel. You felt over the years, and here we are again. We're hitting different. We're whack-a-moling different things now, but really it's the same things maybe from seasons past that weren't things some years, and whatever. We just went through it all, but it's overall frustration. And then we get into this, which is the roster decisions that now go on top of it. And what I'm specifically talking about is Noah Ostlund being sent to the AHL. And I wrote an article last week that he has done enough to get an extended look on this team. I don't know what else they would need from him. I get maybe the production isn't great, but it's not bad either for a player of his age. And let me just run down some numbers really quick from an on-ice perspective. In the entire team, 5-on-5 on-ice perspective, Ostlund is 6th on the team in expected goal share, 54%, 6th on the team in shot share, 52%, 2nd on the team in goal differential, 58%, 7th on the team in goals per hour at 5-on-5, 1st on the team in goals against per hour on the team. Now, maybe here's where you start to see a little bit of their issues. Shot quality for, so expected goals for per 60. He is 17th on the team. Expected goals against per 60, though, he is 2nd on the team. And he is 5th on the team in involving hockey's standing points above replacement. All of those numbers tell a story of a player that deserves an opportunity to play it out. If Yuri Kulik was here and I gave you those numbers for him, everybody would be ecstatic, I think, with that. And sure, again, I get it. Maybe you want a little bit more from the production standpoint. But for me, this just seems like a replacement of Kulik going what he's going through. Is unfortunate he's not in your roster, where Ostlund's kind of stepped in to fill that. And you were given a bailout card almost essentially by him doing that in the way he's performing. And now that's being cast aside. And why is it being cast aside? You could say it's probably not because of performance. It's because here we are again in the Kevin Adams era. A refusal to make a difficult decision. If the easy way is presented to Kevin Adams, he will make that decision 9 times out of 10, when most of the time it is the wrong decision. Noah Ostlund is in the AHL not because he can't handle NHL minutes, not because he's losing his minutes, because he's not, and not because somebody is outperforming him to take those minutes. That's not happening either. He is down in the AHL because this general manager refuses to make a decision with his 3 goaltenders who are among the worst in the league. He is afraid to lose Tyson Kozak or Josh Dunn on waivers. Let me say that one more time. He's afraid to lose Tyson Kozak and Josh Dunn on waivers. Tyson Kozak and Josh Dunn players go on waivers every single day. The majority of the time they clear. If you lose some of them, one of them, it's okay. This team has 7 Josh Dunns. And I get it. I'm not trying to beat on Dunn that he's not a good player. I think he should play above some of the guys that are in the lineup now in particular. But you have guys that could, in the AHL, that can come fix that. You have 3 more of them. And you have whatever one you don't lose still on your roster. This team is not at a shortage of bottom 6 forwards. There doesn't need to be this reluctance to hold on to them because one of them might get claimed. Because you know what? I bet neither of them would get claimed because every other team has their own version of those guys. If a guy gets claimed, off of waivers is because some team thinks that he can go into the middle, most likely can step into the middle of their lineup and provide some sort of secondary scoring. Think of all the guys that are claimed. They have some sort of track record, or they're young, of scoring potential. When's the last time you've seen a Josh Dunn caliber player picked up off of waivers? And if he is, he's back on it a week later. And then you just take him back again. It is wild to me. Wild that this decision was not made based on performance. There was no logical argument that they can make that this decision was based because they didn't think Ostlund could handle it. It was done because of fear. Fear on the goaltending side, fear on the bottom six forward side. And it's not okay. Not acceptable. Not acceptable. And then now the result of it, there's going to be a couple of results of this now. What's going to happen is eventually Peyton Krebs or Tyson Kozak are going to get pushed into the role that Ostlund was in. Once Tage eventually goes back to wing, because we all know what's going to happen, he's going to go back to center for at least one game, and that's good. And I'm glad they're doing that because really he's really only engaged when that happens for some reason. But whatever, that's good. He's going back to center. We're going to get to his line in a minute. But when that reverts back to he goes back to the wing, one of those other two guys are now going to be bumped up, and we've seen how that has gone. So that's your one downfall of this now. And the second downfall is you've now created a hole in the top three lines of your lineup. And what they're going to do is they're going to take Jordan Greenway, who has been a rotational scratch, and pop him up to Thompson's line, at least apparently in Calgary, to play with Thompson and Tuck. A player that they told us was having conditioning issues, needed more time to get better in shape with his injuries, maybe not feeling 100%. He's going to go from being a rotational scratch player to play with a line who might play the most on 5-on-5, allegedly, because that might not even be the case. That might even be Peyton Krebs' line for all we know, because that's happened a couple times here. And to be clear, to get the full picture, the Greenway Tage Tuck thing, there's a numbers argument behind it. The three of them have played 113 minutes in 2022, 3 in 24-25. Right? Am I we're in 25? Yeah. So the previous two seasons, they played 113 minutes together. In those 113 minutes, their shot share is 53%, their expected goal share is 60%, their goal differential is 70%. So all of those things are good, and you understand why they would want to do that. Sure, I completely get it. I can see the argument behind it in the number standpoint. But here is my pushback on that. Are you going to get those same results with the state Jordan Greenway's in now? And he's arguably looked the worst than he's looked in his entire time in Buffalo right now, and we know that the conditioning thing, we know about the injury stuff that's still going on. Are you going to get that performance when Alex Tuck is performing the way he's performing? And the numbers and all of that behind it is good, and I understand that. But if you watch night in, night out, it's just it is different. It is not the same engagement level that Tuck has had throughout his career as we are seeing this season. Contract, whatever else it might be, I don't know. We can all make our own assumptions, but just some eye test, it's just not the same engagement. So are you going to get similar results notating those two things? I don't know. I guess we'll find out and see. But that is my concern with that now. And then that pushes Norris down with Doan and Benson, and that could be fine. Norris is with two guys who are really going to go in there and dig pucks out. They can also play in transition a little bit for you and help defensively. I think that could work. And then you have your McLeod, Zucker, Quinn line, who honestly has not really worked at 5-on-5 the entire season. That the numbers behind that line are not impressive. So we'll see. And then your fourth line, who is kind of, whatever it is. They've been fine most nights, and you kind of don't have any issues really there with them. They play their role, they do their job, and, they go about it. At the end of the day, I just don't think with this decision that they are a better team now than they were when they left Winnipeg. If you want to improve your scoring, I don't think they did that. I think they just made themselves a more grinder team, if that makes sense. And maybe it's a little bit of what they're going for. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think I need to really rehash any more into it. Just, I think the Greenway thing, while it is an outcome of the overall decision, I think the overall decision to send Ostlund down is just another one that winning doesn't seem like a priority. It doesn't seem like when they say that they want to make the best decisions for this team to win, that they consistently do that. They've shown time and time again under Kevin Adams that they make decisions that don't necessarily tell you that everything is about winning. And now we're going to get into the defense pairs to wrap things up here. And, that's another one too, that the pairs have just remained the same since Kesselring went out again. And it's kind of wild to me, particular with Byram and Timmins. I think I posted they were, I don't know, at least bottom 5 pair to play at least whatever amount of minutes. I think it was like 100 minutes, maybe it was 75 at 5-on-5. And they were bottom 5 in goals against. Like that pair is on the ice consistently for goals against. And I understand the one argument that Ruff is making, that there's some scoring there. And okay, I understand that part of it. But for every goal they're scoring, they're giving up 2. So you're still losing. And it's not like nothing can be done about it. You can move your pairs around. Matthias Samuelsson has played really well this season. I think he could handle his own pair. In the past, we've seen Timmins and Power work fine together. I don't know why you wouldn't maybe go back to that. Maybe if it's a Bryson thing, because Bryson and Power right now are fine too for the most part. So maybe you don't want to put Bryson with somebody else and then risk that. Then maybe it's just you mix up your top and you go Samuelsson, Timmins, but I think they did a small sample of that, and that was atrocious too. So I don't know what the really great answer is, but I feel like you got to do something different here at some point. Because it's not working, and you have to try something. And that's the thing I think is kind of crazy, is this whole time you haven't just tried something different. Like within a game, it's not even changed the pairs in a game, really. Maybe a shift here or there. But it's consistent. It's consistently the same pairs. And it hurts them. It hurts them night in, night out, especially when the margin of error is so thin right now that you can't have one pair that, not to mention, plays the most as they did in Winnipeg, that costs you that much. Because that's another thing, is having them play that much. And Peyton Krebs play the most at forward. And it's a lineup, it's game day decisions like that make you kind of start to look into Ruff and really try to understand, does he have the answers anymore? Nobody would blame him if he's out of them. I mean, I'm out of him sitting here. But it's his job to try to figure it out. And it seems like as we're going further and further and further into this season is going and going and going, there's not a lot of solutions being found. And maybe the general manager making the roster decisions that he's making, and I don't want to excuse Ruff from that completely, because I'm sure he's involved in those conversations, is not helping. So I get that. But I just I want to see something. And maybe the forward lineup is that. He's throwing that into the blender and seeing what that spits out. Fine, but I feel like you should have done the same thing with your defense group too. Even if it's just for the start a game, start a period, see how that goes. Because really, you could do no worse than you're doing right now on the road. You give up the first goal of the game. I think it was 9 of the 11 or 9 of the 12 games now on the road, they've given up the first goal. You don't have a regulation win on the road, and we're December 8th is their next game. You have the worst road winning percentage, all of that. Like, sure, do something different. And maybe he starts the forward lines, and we'll see. We'll see where that goes. But I just, that Timmins and Byron pair, it really, those are the two players on the team that consistently are on the ice for goals against, and it's mistakes that they make that result in those goals. Not every time, but they play their part in it, and they're on the same pair together, and they play a lot, and it's a problem. It is a growing problem here as we're going along, and we'll see how that goes the rest of this road trip. Like I said, 4 games left on it before they come home end of next week. Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, your next 3, and then you wrap it up in Seattle. 4 of those games, you probably should win 3 or 4. If you want, you could say split Calgary and Edmonton. They're on back-to-back, and then win in Vancouver and Seattle. That's probably what you got to hope for. You got to split this next 2 in Alberta. You got to win in Vancouver, and you got to win in Seattle. And then if you could do that, you come home looking good. But if you get 1 win of these next 4, as tight as the Eastern Conference is, like, you're going to find yourself 8, maybe double-digit points out at that point. And cooked. I mean, you're cooked going into the holiday break, going into the beginning of the year. Nobody believe. I mean, this is a healthy team outside of Kesselring, and they're probably going to get Kesselring back next week when they return, doing his rehab skates. This is the healthiest they've been all season. So the injury excuse no longer plays here. So if you're going to continue to lose these games, that's, I think, when decision time needs to be made. I'm not talking about the roster. I'm talking about them. We start looking at the coach in the front office. Maybe we're already past that point, but the excuses are removed at that point. It becomes a bigger picture of other people need to start wearing it, and then we need to start. I mentioned a few times. At that point we need to get going with the future, with making changes and getting on our way. Alex Tuch trade, other roster decisions, and start having those realistic conversations. Now, we'll see how the rest of the road trip goes. I'm not saying that has to happen today, but we could be having that conversation next week at some point. I hope not. I hope we get to talk about winning games and being in this thing, but history isn't the most or the best thing they have on their side right now. So that is it. I appreciate you listening. We'll see how these next few games on the road goes, and then we'll regroup here. But a little Sabres after dark here, and then like I said, we'll do a regroup. So I appreciate it for listening. Enjoy the games this week if you stay up to watch them, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.